now, MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin and Skye Perryman, president and CEO of Democracy Forward.
Lisa, Skye, welcome to you both. So Lisa, I just need you to help me understand a few things here, because as I understood going into this grand jury, the lawyers inside the Justice Department was like, we shouldn't touch this. There's not a basis for a case here. Really shouldn't go into this thing. You have all of these pieces that basically were screaming, there's no case, and yet they go and they get the indictment. So here's the question. Why will this go to trial?
It will likely go to trial for a couple of reasons. Let's start with the fact that Jim Comey himself is inviting the trial. That's not to say that he doesn't have good grounds, Michael, for a motion to dismiss on multiple grounds, including vindictive prosecution. But those motions very rarely win. And in the Fourth Circuit, they almost never are entertained on a pretrial basis. So let's start there. But even if he were to bring that motion, he is setting the expectation and maybe even creating the correct impression that there are so many merits-based issues on which he can fight. I saw his statement last night as sort of a confident way of saying, bring it. Let's try this case now. I'm entitled to a speedy trial, and you want a speedy trial? I'll give you a speedy trial. Let's go to trial now. So, yes, we could see protracted pretrial motion practice here on the question of whether or not he is being punished or retaliated against for exercising, essentially, his First Amendment rights. But on the contrary, he seems to be inviting a trial because he knows that on the merits of this case, even putting aside all of the reasons why this case should never have been brought because it's so political, that on the merits of this case, whether or not the government can prove the elements of the crimes against him, there are lots of shades of gray, if not things that, as you said, are in screaming black and white that would have mitigated against bringing it.
You know, I think that this is about, it's not about evidence, it's about power. Because, you know, earlier this week, folks were like, well, is this about Andrew McCabe? And the prevailing wisdom was this was about, a discrepancy. He said between Andrew McCabe and former FBI Director James Comey. The Justice Department, people familiar with it, are now saying that this is actually about what James Comey said about Hillary Clinton. I don't know if it's inappropriate for me to say this, Skye, but I don't think it matters. What is it about? What it's about, because the prosecution itself is political. The reason it came about is political. The investigation, in fact, was political. It wasn't brought from a basis of, you know, trying to seek out the facts and let the investigation take us where it does and let's meet justice. This is about justice. This is about power. This is about retribution. So I think the Justice Department and the president, I think it would be playing their game, for lack of a better term, for us to parse apart, like, well, did James Comey lie about Hillary Clinton? Did he lie about, is Andrew McCabe telling the truth? What is this all about? When we should be focused on the fact that the President of the United States has been saying James Comey and other people should be prosecuted, and he finally found someone that was willing to do it. This is crazy.
And the president has miscalculated here, because you've seen this last week. He came out, he wanted to bully media outlets, he didn't like a comedian, he wanted to retaliate. You've seen the American people push back. You're going to see that here, too. This is not what happens in the United States. It's not what is supposed to happen. Last Friday, we were all together. We were talking about the fact the president had said he was going to fire the U.S. attorney. The U.S. attorney had to resign. That was his own appointee. Many people that have looked at this have said, you know, there is just nothing here. But the president continues to overreach. And so my call for everybody tonight, all the American people, but all the people that were up in arms about Jimmy Kimmel, right? Let's talk about Ted Cruz. Let's talk about Rand Paul, all those folks that were saying this is not what we do in America. We don't bully people off the air. This is about the First Amendment. We need to be doing the same thing here, saying the president doesn't just get to snap his fingers and demand that the Department of Justice take on his political enemies or his political opponents or people that he perceives to be that. And that is what we see here. And I think he has miscalculated and overreached.
Michael Steele, you know, when Skye just said I was here a week ago talking about Eric Siebert, it does not feel like it was a week ago. And that is by design, Michael Steele. And you have warned of this for a very long time, right? That it's not just that they were going to move, but they were going to move swiftly. And all three of us have talked about the fact that he has systematically put loyalists in place at every level for moments like this. Let me read you, Michael, what Donald Trump is saying on Truth Social. About Kash Patel. I'd like to thank Kash Patel and the outstanding members of the FBI for their brilliant work on the recent indictment of the worst FBI director in the history of our country, James Dirty Cop Comey. The level of enthusiasm by the FBI was incredible, but only caused by the fact that they knew Comey for what he is and was, a total, all caps, slimeball. Again, thank you to the FBI and specifically those that worked on this case with U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan, who's been U.S. Attorney for about 30 seconds, and the DOJ. Thank you for your attention to this matter, all caps, make America great again. I mean, this is about him. It is about him complaining, Michael, about his base and nothing more.
Well, exactly. It's always about him. And the thing about this, particularly when it comes to the law firms and the DOJ, is that he, in my estimation, has had such an experience, let's say, with the legal system over his years in business. He has figured out where the weak spots are. He's figured out where the pressure points are. And so he's been able to manipulate his people, meaning pull, seasoned veteran prosecutors out, put in people who are sycophants and have no clue. Look, he chose an insurance lawyer, folks, as the key prosecutor here. Why? Because she was his insurance. That's what this is about. This is Donald Trump ensuring his network of support to push forward, Lisa, an adjudication of a system that he personally has had a lot of experience with, right? Not just in his time as president, but in his time in business, his time in New York. And so that arc of experience with the legal system, in which he's, in many cases, come up on the short end. What does that tell you about his ability to so effectively manipulate law firms, prosecutors, DOJ? I mean, these folks just kind of fall down. And now we're at a point where he can put all that to work to go after the likes of Comey, to go after Letitia James, to go after anyone he now deems has tried to stop his authoritarian reach.
I will accept your proposition that Donald Trump has far more experience than your average bear with our system of litigation. But, Michael, experience alone is not what allows somebody to leverage the ways that Donald Trump has. Normal people, notwithstanding their extensive experience with federal courts or state courts, don't become president and then immediately start dismantling the rule of law. So it's not a function of just experience alone. And you're right, he has often found himself on the short end of the legal system, but just as often he has managed to prevail, not on the merits, but by a strategy of what I'd call delay, stall, and ignore. His delay tactics and all of the litigation that occurred over the last 4 years is almost infamous. And yet, none of that should have allowed him to or gave him any insight into doing what he did here, which is just very simply ignoring civil service protections, stripping people of the tenure to which they are entitled by law, installing loyalists without experience. And I want to be really clear about something. Lindsay Halligan is not a dumb person. We keep calling her an insurance lawyer as if it's an insult, and it shouldn't be. I don't think I would be any better off after 15 years of being a commercial litigator walking into a grand jury room and trying to present a case to that grand jury. This is a question of subject matter expertise, not credentials. This is about, do you understand the criminal justice system? And I would submit to you that this is not a person whose life's work adequately prepares them for the job that she has taken on much less to even be appointed as a line prosecutor in any one of the 94 judicial districts around the country that DOJ operates.
Well, I mean, look, her starring role, frankly, in this situation now as the U.S. attorney with no prosecutorial experience, her only experience, the reason she is most qualified for this job is because of her loyalty to Donald Trump. That is his own litmus test. And what James, again, this is not about James Comey, okay? He is no sparkling flower in the eyes of a lot of Americans, okay? I think Martha Stewart and Hillary Clinton themselves would both like to have a word, or millions of Americans in 2016, okay? However, what is happening to James Comey, it is bigger than him.
Correct.
It is connected. This is about the president criminalizing dissent, punishing people with whom he feels as though, it's a feeling. Matter of fact, it's a feeling. Punishing people he feels like he has something going on with, he has a vendetta. And he's taking it out on James Comey's family. I mean, look, former federal prosecutor Maureen Comey sues Trump administration over the reason they fired her. She's suing them now. His daughter, James Comey's daughter, his son-in-law, quit. He was an attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia, the same office that just indicted his father-in-law. And when he quit yesterday evening, he cited that he did so to uphold the Constitution. Baby, this is not just about James Comey. This is about all of us and whether we are going to allow as a country the president of the United States to co-opt the Justice Department and use it as his own personal, I don't even know if there's a real law firm.
Well, and that is why every single American should be concerned. Because if he can come for James Comey, if he can go out and tweet to the Attorney General, this is who I want you to go after, and destroy these protections, we really are seeing a politicization and a weaponization of our justice system. But the other side of that story is that we have seen just this week, the American people do have power in using their voice. This administration was called on the carpet. And guess what? The Republicans that somehow some of them got some courage and stood up for the First Amendment for a minute, right? They didn't turn into a pumpkin after they did that. The president didn't come for them. The president's now trying to walk away from what he did with Kimmel because it was so unpopular with people and the American people stood up. And so we need to call on, where is everybody, right? And
can I just say, I know we have to go, but I'm concerned that those same folks that stood up for the First Amendment, yesterday, Republican elected official after Republican elected official celebrated James Comey's indictment.
I agree, and that is the problem here. And that is what every single American needs to start holding people accountable. If you cannot do this to the First Amendment, you can't do it to Jimmy Kimmel, but you can't do this. The president, we don't live in a monarchy. This isn't a king. You can't, snap your fingers and say, go after this person because I don't like them, right? Or because I feel a certain way. And so that's what we need the American people to start holding, as they did this last week, holding their elected officials accountable. What is every single elected official going to do about this? Because guess what? The tables can be turned, right? And we don't want that to happen in this country.
Thank y'all for kicking us off. Skye Perryman, Lisa Rubin, appreciate your time.